It's Nancy welcoming you to Gardens Grow. Today is June the 15th, and since the last time I talked with you on a post and we went on a Gardens Grow, there have been a lot of changes. There's been a turnover in our weather. The heat came on the second week in June, and it's still here with us. I hope we have some good weather as the summer goes on, off and on, because it's been already just been blisteringly hot and hard to work, even hard to water in the garden for the heat. And also in the garden, the flowers have totally changed. There's just no more peonies, no more iris, but now lilies are blooming practically everywhere. And the little pots that I did just weeks ago, though some of them have had to be redone, the plants in them have died due to insects or for whatever reason, but most of the pots now are beginning to come into their own. We'll start here in the back, and I'll take you around and show you some of the things that are changing. Of course, in June is when the sedums go ahead and bloom, even though it's really a little insignificant flower to just the color of the foliage and the shape, the texture. But it's still a pretty little sight to see. Butterfly weed is blooming. Every day there's a new daylily bloom. And of course the Asiatic lilies are blooming too. Right beside it here, oh, first let's not miss this one. And then right beside it is the pretty, I'm going to pull back so you can see this whole little bush, which I thought was little when I purchased it, but it's gotten to be pretty big. It's probably like a 4 foot tall and at least 4 foot wide, maybe a little wider than it is tall. But this is a St. John's wort, and look at the bloom on this. Isn't that pretty? It's just so different because it literally looks like little fiber optic top in the center of it. The daisies have been blooming for quite some time. They always look so fresh and pretty. The crisp white color. Some of the roses are still blooming too. This, of course, is the larkspur here with the daisies, and it, as you can tell, actually it is going to seed. So I will need to get out here and pull up a bunch of this. I want a little of it to go to seed, but it does get out of hand. For a long time I thought it didn't, that it just grew up with everything else and made everything else even more beautiful. But I actually realized at one point that it was taking the sun away from my iris in one place. So I realized what it can do if you let it go too much. So I will be pulling up some of that. And then look at this lily. It is so big, bigger than my hand, and it's called Screaming Orange. I can't remember all the names of my daylilies or all the names of my flowers, but I usually remember the name of this one because it just screams orange at me. Soon these lilies will burst open. The pretty blue catmint's always welcome. What a difference in the flowers in the garden from the last time we went on a garden scroll. It's almost like a whole different garden. The coneflowers are beginning to bloom. The Russian sage is actually putting on some bloom. Usually this little plant, I don't notice it so much until late summer and fall when it really gets big and beautiful. And I moved some of my lilies that were over in the little nook corner and put them out here where they can get some sun and some attention. You can really see how the pots have filled out and coming into their own and just looking so great. And I'm so glad of that, especially because some of them I didn't know about, and some of them actually did succumb and had to be redone. So that's always disheartening to see them go. But for the most part, here in the back, they have remain the same ones that I put in there. There's a few that I had to go ahead and put different ones in. Oh, I'm just realizing that this many of the, I think this is called Hadley Hybrid Clematis or Clematis, but they're blooming this morning. This little Chinese dunce cap is still filling out. So I have not taken any of those out because I think they're all just going to come back. But we'll see. We'll see how they do. But right now they're doing great. And look at this clematis. This is, I think, well, maybe it's the second year that I've had clematis this long, because the president doesn't seem to stay in bloom that long. But this is the Jackmanii, and it has so far stayed in bloom all the way till today, the 15th of June, and it's looking so good. I do love the president one though, and I like the idea that I've got them both on there. The one comes on a little sooner, and then the other one comes on, and they just look great. As far as the color, you can't really tell the difference in them. Just the one has more petals than the other. And this is my lily. I always say that because my granddaughter, Lily Mae, she would paint something like this. Sometimes it even has a different variation in color, and that's the one that always reminds me of her, because she always likes to do it just a little different, put just a little more character into it. I love the things she's painted in my garden for me. Oh, and this little clematis is blooming. I don't remember if I had this bloom. I know I had the clematis, but I don't know if I had this bloom last year. But I did have the sweet little cupped Princess Diana bloom on this. And I had a beautiful red, like red velvet on this little pole. And I lost it. It's one of the ones that I lost right down there by that pretty lavender rose, and it was growing up this pole. So I will definitely want to replace that. It was totally one of my favorites. This is called a spider daylily. I guess because of the way its petals are, rather than being like this one where it's rounded at the tips, these just kind of splay out at you. I can find them here again. Right here. Let me go over there, I think, and get a little closer look for you. So these are also a very big lily, and they're just beautiful. And I have that screaming excuse me, I have that screaming orange pretty much here and there all over the garden. It just fascinated me that it was so big and so pretty. And this is the ballerina yarrow. And I'm going to go back over to my west side fence. And show you some of these pots, some more of these pots along this fence, because they, like I said, are just filling out so well. They're, well, I just call it coming into its own, because they're no longer just little scraggly plants, but they are beginning to show some growth and some great beauty. Look at this pretty double petunia. More of the daylilies. More daylilies. Look at this little pot of blue days, and it's blooming for us this morning. Isn't that pretty? And then beside it are the beautiful white Asiatic lilies. These were not blooming like this last night when I was here. They were beginning to open up like this, I believe, but they hadn't totally opened up yet. That's one of my favorite things to do, is to come outside and find this kind of beauty. And it wasn't there the day before, and it's just such a beautiful surprise. And then my little double tiered pots, and they are doing good too. They're even filling out a bit at the top, and these are filling out better too. This is that pretty little fan flower, and of course it's not in bloom, but it's doing well compared to the way it was doing. I thought I would probably lose it, but now I'm thinking it might have a good chance, so they'll be great. And then this pretty little, this is the one that is yellow and white of the Calabrachoa. It's not doing great, but it's certainly hanging in there, which is also a good thing. And then this little pink one is hanging in there too. So even though it still looks small and scraggly compared to some of the other pots, it's got a lot of potential that's trying, and it's trying to use that potential for the glory of God, just to show off and be beautiful. Show some of God's handiwork. Get this pretty ruffled daylily. This is one of my favorites. And then this, oh, this is what I love so much. I wanted this, all three of them to be just full of calabachoa like this, and for it to stay. So I don't know how this is going to do. And this pretty little bacopa, it's not doing as well as I would like it to, but it's still there, and hopefully it will. The one on the other side of the garden, though, is almost gone. It just has a tiny little sprig of it left. We did have a limb that broke off of one of our trees. Actually, not this one, but this one right here. And I'm just now noticing that my husband would come out here. He said he would, where it broke and it was all jaggedy, he said he would trim that off for me, and he did. So that looks so much better than it did before. Look how this autumn clematis has just covered this little trellis. There's not any of it showing now. So I hope this will look good for you, and when it puts on its pretty white blooms, I hope it will be just a tower of white. This is another one of my favorite clematis, or clematis. It's just such a beauty, that color. That deep dark color, I love it. You can tell that a lot of it has already gone to seed, and some of it is turning brown because of our heat. It does not like the heat. Look how this little one has come into its own. This Dichandra, Silver Falls Dichandra, is coming down, trailing down the pot, and she just looks so pretty in there. And I did put a few more little periwinkle or vinca in here, and I think most people call them periwinkle. I usually end up calling them vinca because that was the first name that I learned them by. But it just looks so much better, just that little bitty spot of color and that giving it more filling. It just looks so pretty, and I'm proud of it. Actually, let me go around behind it a little bit so you can also see that there's a beautiful coleus in the back. So, and I thought that would peek out and show a little bit more, and it may as the season goes on, but it's pretty anyway. It just looks good, looks full and pretty. And I told you that our castor bean had come up, and now it's up even more, and there actually one more of them sprouted and came up, and so I took it and put it in front, and I'm hoping that it will build a little shade where my maple tree used to give it a lot of shade in the front, but now it doesn't get enough, and I still have shade plants there, so they're needing some shade. I think the last time I showed you this little alyssum that's all around the edges was just a tiny, tiny little dot of a plant that came up from seed, and they're already beginning to get big and looking great. This pot looks good to me too. I'm glad. I like them full, but that's my problem. Sometimes I put too much in them and they don't have room to grow. So some of this may have to be thin, but right now it looks great. Look at this pretty little yarrow here, and it has a red bloom on it. Matter of fact, I'll just go right over here so you can see, because I see that this one is blooming. I don't know if you can get the pretty color. I think so. There in the sunlight, but it does look very pretty. I had one of these once before, and I think a mole took it out for me, which I'm not, I just don't like moles actually. This is a beautiful little plant, but I can see it's not doing well over on this side. It must have either got too much water or got water there while it was hot. I think that's the case actually. I think there's one of my hoses is sprinkling just right over here when I put it on in the heat. And I know you should only put them on at morning and night when the weather is cooler. But when you have a garden this big, actually, if it's going to take you 5 to 8 hours to get it all watered, you're going to be out here in the heat at some point. So I've been trying to, isn't this a pretty, I think this is called Pandora's Box. Daylily. But yes, that's what I was saying, why I'm trying to fix my hoses where they will go ahead and be able to water the biggest part of the garden for me, and then maybe I can just be out here myself just doing the hand watering at a cooler time. That's the hope, because it is miserably hot. Oh, look at this little plant. I found this at Walmart, and this is a hardy hibiscus. So pretty. It has a pink and white bloom, and this little pot right beside it got a late start. I didn't put it in till later when I actually found this fan flower at a sale, end of the season sale. So isn't that something? We've come to the end of the spring season. In just a few days it'll be officially summer on the calendar, and summer has already came to our garden. This is a bat flower. I think it's pretty because of its little color, but most of all it's just so unique because it really truly does look like a little bat flying at you there. And this morning I see that my pretty African daisy is blooming. And on this side there's the pretty pastel pink. I love this yarrow. This beautiful little rose. Oh, and this is today is the first bloom for this daylily. I always enjoy it. It's so bright orange, almost red. And it has a little different color too, or a little different shape too, where it kind of cups up a bit. And all the pretty yellow bracts are gone from the ghost honeysuckle, but it just leaves these pretty little circle. I guess this is part of that bract, but it looks nice, and I really like it. I like that pretty blue cast that it has. And here we have more daisies, and these are the shorter version of the daisy. Across from it, these two pots are coming into their own too. So when all the some of the annuals are gone, or the perennials are gone, the annuals begin to fill out and take over, and they're looking good this morning. I did lose some more of my purple splash peppers, but look at this one right there. Isn't that pretty? And it's really growing. The others are so small, like this one, but it's still there and still alive. So I lost some, but there's still one in each of these pots, and I'm hoping they will get to their their greatest potential, so you can see just how beautiful they are. And there's still one little one right here, which makes this pot looks kind of scraggly, but I'm thinking I might just leave this room to grow, because it will, if something doesn't happen to stop it, it will look beautiful. The pyramid of petunias are filling out too. And this little pot is even beginning to fill out some. This is another pot that I took out of its little nook so we could see the beautiful bloom on it. There's another of the daylilies. And this is one of my favorite lilies too. And it's also a daylily, and it just, I don't know, I love the colors, and I love how it's trimmed in that white, so it always catches my attention. And I got a new stake for the garden, or shepherd's hook. This one was getting a little too much sun, so I put it here where it gets dappled shade, where it still gets sun and shade. And so was this one. It was dying there in front, where I had it in front of the house. And oh, I hope this pretty impatient will come out of it and live. And then that beautiful begonia on the other side, and I snuck in a little coleus there too. So I'm hoping that this will come out of that and be beautiful. And then I'm trying to start another little piece of my copper plant in this pot. So I'm hoping that will work there for me. This was something so that I could bring them into the shade, and I think I'm gonna really love it, this pretty little shepherd's hook. This was one of the first daylilies I ever planted, or this type. I have them in several places now in the garden. As you know, you need to divide them ever so often. It's hard for me to throw a plant away. So I usually have someone I can give them to, or just put them someplace else in the garden. But I loved how it just kind of reaches out there, like it's reaching to you. I notice I have some more of the white lilies blooming here. There's a pretty yellow daylily here, and of course I have daylily blooms I need to snip off, as they only last a day. There's always that job to do that I rarely get around to in a timely manner. This is where my little bacopa that was beautiful blue, so pretty, and it's gone. I very seriously doubt if it'll be able to come out of that, but I will hold on to hope that it will, but it's very not likely. I planted seeds in these two little ones, and as you can see, seeds are coming up in this one, but not in this one. So I'll need to plant some more. That's what I did yesterday, was plant more seeds from places that I planted them before and they didn't come up. But I missed this one. Actually, I just did it there in the front of the house. I love the blue of this bachelor button. And I see I have another little hibiscus bloom in the back of this three-tiered pot in the top level of it. And again, the Chinese dunce cap is looking great in this pot. Well, maybe not all of it will come back. Definitely enough of it to look gorgeous is coming back. So that gets you around the back gardens, and we'll go around the front gardens for a little bit too. This butterfly weed was so pretty when it was in bloom with that little bird right in front of it. And I do have some of those pictures on my Instagram page. And my tomatoes, while not making tomatoes yet, are making some pretty vines. Hopefully it won't just be vines, but we'll have some nice tomatoes there. These are my volunteer little petunias, and while they don't always come back true to the parent petunia, they often come back truly beautiful. So the sweat is already dripping down me, and I came out here at 8 o'clock this morning, or a few minutes till, so it's going to be another hot one, of course. And this is where I was trying to get Erica and myself a start off of my lemon fluff, but they're not looking like they're going to make it. But I'll try again in the fall, maybe. Oh, look, I didn't realize this was open. I've got a caladium leaf here. I'll get it opened a little more so you can see that whole thing. Isn't that pretty? What I was going to show you is that this is where this little pot, everything died out of it. So I pretty much gave up on the impatiens in this pot, and I'm trying now to do the periwinkle, and there's a little coleus there, and I still left the begonia. These can look so gorgeous, but it just, you can tell by the brown on it, and I tried to cut most of that off, and I see I missed some right there, but these can look so gorgeous when they just fill out and just put on so much. When they're healthy and looking great, they just are a sight to behold for sure. And my little Calabachoa is still alive, and this little coleus is coming into its own, and you can see the pretty purple veining in there. This is a pot where I had impatiens in there. The first ones that died, I put this pretty polka dot plant in there, and then the ones on the other side died. So just last night I put this little coleus in there, and I'm hoping they will make it. It also, I had petunias I had in this one, and they died out too, and I'm sure it's, not petunias, but impatiens, and I'm sure it's the snails that were killing them. But you can see right. So before my camera interrupted with change the battery, I was telling you that this is where I put the other little castor bean that sprouted, and I'm hoping it will grow up tall and put a shade over these little plants. They have one in the morning, but when the afternoon sun gets terrible, the shade is gone, and they are in some desperate need of some shade. This is another pot that I had changed 3 times. I think this little impatient is actually the second time that I changed the pot out, and it's still alive, but all the ones around the side of it died out, and I put some periwinkle and coleus in it. I'm so amazed that my pretty Persian shield, pretty purple Persian shield, is still purple. And I know everybody said they're always purple, but actually mine turned to this color right here, or maybe a little more brown. So this is the first time I've had it this long, and it may be because the heat didn't come on as soon. It's on now, but it didn't come on as soon as it has in other years. And I'm going to reach right down here and pull this little seed head thing out of here so the plant will grow big and not spindly but broad, a little more filled out. And this is a new little plant too. Whether or not it will make it there, having put it in this light, we'll see. Hopefully it will. These are still going, thank God. These are some of the ones that I replaced the second time, and they haven't had to be replaced the third time at least. Like I had 3 other pots that actually did have to be replaced 3 times. So I'm hoping that this time will be the charm. In this little pot also, I had to replace a bunch of stuff in it. Thankfully, that pretty begonia is still doing good, and hopefully it will put on some beautiful bloom and more growth and just look even better. And I did, because it looked so bare, I did put some of that alyssum there, and I have a kind of a white and green pattern going in this. And then I also put the white impatiens around this. I did have little sprigs from the window in this of the begonia, but they died. They were doing good, or fair. They weren't doing good yet, but they were doing fair until the heat came on, and then I don't know if I have any of them left now. But we have the pretty white impatiens to take their place. Bells of Ireland are in bloom. And the vine is already all the way up this little trellis. And I had a pretty little, this is the miniature rose, and it's blooming here. And also, I'll show you where the pink one is, and that it's also blooming. So a lot of these plants did make it. There's a few that I had to replace though. And I purchased a new hosta. And here is where my other little rose, the pretty little pink one, is blooming. Right across from it is another one of these that are my favorites with the ruffles, the daylilies. And my husband and his brother took this tree down to ground level. And so I hope the next time I show you this, I'll have my border back around it where it belongs, and my little pots that I have just lined up over here back around this stump. And then in the center of it, I plan to try to just put a pot in the center and maybe put it up on something. I'm not sure. We'll see how that goes too, but hopefully I'll have this fixed before too awfully long. And I'm gonna love my lace cap hydrangea. Just look at that. It really does look like a little umbel, or a huge umbel of lace. So pretty. I hope it just continues to do well year after year, bigger and prettier. Oh, and I noticed yesterday that I have one little lone bloom on my bougainvillea. It's another favorite plant for me. It took me so long to be able to get one that would come back. And I've taken this in the house now for several years. Well, and I say several, 3 is several to me. And it may have been the 4th year that I took it in, actually. And it's alive and doing well, and I'm so grateful. Look at this beautiful little Nemesia. I hope it keeps going too. It's kind of like my Bacopa though. It's usually a little iffy. And the first time I grew Bacopa, I had no problem with it, and I didn't know it was a problem child at all. I had no idea. But I've learned since then that it can be very finicky, and I have a hard time keeping them going and growing and looking good. I found my knife out there, but I wanted to show you this. I worked late last night out here, so I didn't get everything picked up evidently. But look at this pretty little, this is also impatient. It's the New Guinea impatient. Isn't that pretty? I love that swirl of color. This little pot thankfully made it. I had identical flowers in this little pot, and as you can see, nothing so far has made it here. But I'm hoping and thinking maybe this seems like it's got its root down, so hopefully it will make it. And I planted some more seeds in this little pot last night or late yesterday evening, and so hopefully it'll one day be a beauty too. This is the little pot that I redid, and I think I told you about it, but it was just dying in there. But look how healthy they look now. I'm so glad I did go ahead and take the, I put a little bit more of a coconut liner lip on here where it had some more room, and put some fresh dirt in there, and just put these little clippings that didn't even have a root because that part of them had died, and just the little tips of them were still alive. And now they're looking great. They have such potential now, and I think they'll make it. I hope they do. And then these little purple hearts are just growing up to the point you can hardly tell that they were just started by little pieces off of another pot of purple heart. These little strawberry drop are beginning to come into their own. They still have a ways to go, but I think they're getting there, and I'm so glad because I did not find any more of them, and I tried them from seed and they didn't come up. So these scraggly little pieces that I kept in the window is all that I have. But if they do well, and I know they can, and I hope they will, there will be enough there that I can even probably take off some clippings and put in other places. My little aloe vera, the ones in the middle still look good, but the others are still laid down. But my next door neighbor said this was awesome, so I'm so glad that it still can look pretty to someone. I was thinking it probably looked so terrible, but then if you saw my sister's, you'd think, yeah, yours does look terrible compared to hers, because hers looks so huge and so great. And this little sweet potato vine, actually I grew it in the window, or saved it over winter in the window, and it looks so pathetic. I also had another one on this side which is gone, but this one didn't give it up. It stayed in there, and now it's beginning to look healthy and beautiful. Also, one of my elephant ears is coming up here. These little culprits are what I have so much trouble with. If you can see those roly-polies, those and snails. And they are not harmless like people say. They will actually take a plant out. And it doesn't take them long to do it. They just gather around one little plant, bunch up in a huge group, and then it's gone. That plant's gone, and they go right on to another one to destroy it too. This is my little homely Homer, which is not doing much yet either, but you know, the season's just begun. At least the gardening season. Our spring season is over, practically. We have a few more days. And then this is the Pretty Bells of Ireland, and I did plant a few more seeds in here yesterday evening also, and everything, practically everything I planted over here just did not live. There's a very few little, or didn't sprout. There's a very few little ones. Right here's one, another one back there, there's a tiny one here, a little tiny grouping of something here, but that's it. And the rest of it was empty after I planted all those seeds and took all that time. It takes a long time to plant seeds. I can't believe how long it takes to plant seeds, but anyway, we got it done. And look at this pretty, I think this is a Black-Eyed Susan. That kind of gets you around the front and also, and shows you what's going on in the garden. And I feel like I just kind of hem-hawed around on the garden posts today, but I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed bringing it to you, even though somehow the heat and the just life itself can kind of get us down. It kind of gets me that way sometimes, but I'm grateful for life. I'm grateful for beauty. I'm grateful for the good things that God gives us, all of His mighty and wonderful blessings. Please be sure to like and to subscribe to the channel.